Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Stuart Henderson, Director of Jefferson Lab. This is a great nuclear physics, and it's a great day for the nation. Distinguished speakers, honored guests, and Jefferson Lab staff and users, it's a tremendous pleasure and honor to welcome you to the dedication of the 12GeV CEBAF upgrade. Today marks not only the completion of the construction project, but the beginning of a new era of scientific discovery at Jefferson Lab, an era of discovery for its scientific community as well as the nation. In addition to Undersecretary DeBar and other Department of Energy officials, we're thrilled to have representatives from Congress, from the Commonwealth of Virginia, from the Hampton Roads region and the city of Newport News, our local universities, and our user community here with us today to help us celebrate this tremendous accomplishment. I'm pleased to welcome Congressman Bobby Scott, Congressman Scott Taylor, Virginia Deputy Secretary of Education Fran Bradford, Virginia Senator Monty Mason, Delegate Marcia Price, Delegate David Yancey, and Newport News City Manager Cindy Rolfe. I would also like to welcome our colleagues from Huntington Ingalls and from the Navy who are here in attendance today. To help provide a gauge that many of you from this area may have some familiarity with, a major project like the upgrade is similar in time scale to constructing an aircraft carrier or a new submarine, although at a fraction of the cost. And for our field of nuclear physics, this is the newest aircraft carrier or the newest submarine. The 12GeV upgrade is our nation's investment and continued leadership in a very critical field of fundamental science, that is the field of nuclear physics. And for most of us attending here today, we are only the tip of the iceberg in terms of the people who've worked tirelessly toward realizing this upgraded facility and its scientific potential over many, many years. Completing a project of this size on time and on budget takes a very dedicated team of scientists, engineers, technicians, and support staff. Thanks to all of you who made this happen. Please give yourselves a round of applause. But it also takes the support of our many stakeholders without whose support such a major project would not have been possible. For more than a decade, the Department of Energy, government officials at the federal, state, and local level, laboratory leadership, scientific users, and the larger Hampton Roads community have been working together to make today a reality. So I want to begin by thanking not only those of you here, but those who came before, whose hard work, whose dedication and support helped to bring us to this day. Our user community, made up of researchers from all over the world, has been very anxiously awaiting the new CEBAF 12GeV capabilities and has already begun the next era of scientific discovery at Jefferson Lab. Today, we're proud to dedicate the world's most advanced microscope for studying the inner workings of protons, neutrons, and nuclei, enabling groundbreaking science to understand the most basic building blocks of matter and the forces that bind them. This upgrade builds upon a very strong legacy of scientific discovery, a legacy that produces 1/3 of our nation's PhDs in nuclear physics and yields technologies that have benefits well beyond scientific research. Our first speaker has been a champion for higher education for more than 25 years, first at the State Council of Higher Education and then as Associate Vice President for Government Relations at William & Mary, where she was responsible for the college's federal and state government relations. With that history of service, it's no surprise that Governor Ralph Northam asked her to serve in his administration focused on Virginia's higher education programs. Please join me in welcoming Deputy Secretary of Education, Fran Bradford.
Good afternoon. I was a little worried that the intro was going to be longer than my remarks, so I'm grateful that that did not occur. First, I just want to say as an art history major, I feel a little bit like a fish out of water, but have come to appreciate what an amazing place this is and what an incredible group of scientists that you have working at this facility. I'm honored to bring greetings on behalf of the governor and congratulations on the opening of this new facility. I'm equally honored to be here with this illustrious group and offer a special thank you to our friends from USDOE for joining us and to our congressional legislative local, and industrial partners without whom we could not have this facility and do the amazing work. I'd also like to recognize Stuart Henderson for his more than able leadership in his last 15 months on the job. Today is an exciting day, but we know many more exciting days are coming for this facility. The Northern Administration well recognizes the economic value that JLab brings not only to the region, but to the entire Commonwealth. We also recognize the value that JLab brings to the scientific community with researchers not just from many of Virginia's finest institutions, many of you who are represented here, but from some of the finest institutions around the world. We are pleased to have provided critical financial support to the lab, including $9 million investment in the major upgrade to the accelerator, Hall D, which some of us saw earlier today. This $9 million was used to leverage more than $330 million in federal funding, and a return on investment. I know we all wish we could get on our own investments. The combined federal and state investment ensured that this 8-year 12GeV project came in on schedule and on budget, and with some of our budget folks in the audience, I know they appreciate that. And it produced an upgrade that will extend the life and the science of this lab for a generation. So again, I say thank you and congratulations.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is a Newport News native who, after graduating from Harvard, returned to Newport News to practice law. After serving in the Virginia House of Delegates and the Virginia Senate, Bobby Scott was elected to Congress in 1993. Now serving his 13th term representing Virginia's 3rd District, Congressman Scott has been a very strong supporter of Jefferson Lab, really from its infancy. We are very honored to have today with us Congressman Bobby Scott.
Thank you, and good afternoon. It's certainly a pleasure to be here today to celebrate the completion of Jefferson Lab's 12GeV upgrade project, and I'd like to particularly thank Stuart Henderson and Undersecretary of Energy Paul DeBar for being with us today. Jefferson Lab will be celebrating its 34th anniversary this year, and it's the time it's been open, it's quickly become a world leader in nuclear physics research. The installation of your 12GeV upgrade is another way to ensure that Jefferson Lab will remain on the cutting edge of scientific research, and I know that all of us are excited to see what we'll be able to accomplish moving forward with the new capabilities. Advocates for Jefferson Lab frequently cite the fact that the lab's continuous electron beam accelerator facility. Now, I've been at this so long, I knew when it was going to be the Continuous Electron Beam Accelerator Research Facility. But they took out research because the acronym was CEBAF, and so they just went with CEBAF. But it's the most advanced particle beam accelerator in the world for the purpose of understanding quark structure of the atom's nucleus. And we know that investing in this field remains vitally important. If the United States wishes to remain a world leader in scientific community, we have to make investments like this. So strong professional scientific research helps all of us. The facts do not have political affiliation, and for that reason, I was happy to join with my colleague Rob Whitman, who has a PhD in science, in sending a bipartisan letter to the House Appropriations Committee requesting that the Medium Energy Operations Program within the Department of Energy receive $118 million in funding for fiscal year 2019. Now, you notice that Scott Taylor you may have noticed that Scott Taylor didn't sign the letter. That's because he serves on the Appropriations Committee, and it was addressed to him. So, good research doesn't happen in a vacuum, and it certainly doesn't happen without proper funding. And it's important for members of Congress to commit to being consistent advocates for science, especially when we have so much to gain from institutions like Jefferson Lab. As you know, Jefferson Lab is a vital component of our local economy. Jefferson Lab creates jobs, encourages local investment, and attracts the best and the brightest scientific minds from across the world. This is true even before the installation of the 12GeV upgrade, and I know that things will only get better from here. The lab's presence in Newport News betters the Commonwealth of Virginia and makes our region a premier scientific research location. Virginia's colleges and universities are some of the strongest in the nation, and I'm sure that many current and prospective nuclear science students are making academic and career decisions based in part on their desire one day to work here at Jefferson Lab. Given the good work that all of you do and the projects that you're poised to complete with the new upgrade, I'm sure that they will not be disappointed. So once again, I'm excited to be here to join you today in celebrating the completion of the 12GeV upgrade, and I commend all of you here for your hard work over the years getting this project across the line. The breakthroughs you will make here will no doubt be felt all over the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Congressman Scott. We are honored today to have as our guest a man who began a career of service by enlisting in the Navy. Trained as an elite Navy SEAL, Scott Taylor chose to re-enlist after September 11th, and he served in Operation Iraqi Freedom, where he was injured on a combat mission. In 2013, he was elected to represent the 85th District in the House of Delegates, and in January 2017, he was sworn in as Congressman for Virginia's 2nd District, where he now serves on the Appropriations Committee. Please join me in welcoming Congressman Scott Taylor.
Well, good afternoon, Undersecretary DeBar, Secretary Bradford, or Deputy Secretary Bradford, my colleague, Bobby Scott, my old colleagues, Delegate Yancey, Senator, Delegate Price. I appreciate it. Appreciate being here with you today. And I want you guys to know that I already know the answer to the mystery of why quarks aren't found in isolation, or never found in isolation, but I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to figure it out for yourselves with this new investment that you got. No, listen, I truly appreciate being here, and I certainly like to hear the words on time, on budget, and the Appropriations Committee. I'm proud to have helped fight for monies in fiscal year 18 and, of course, coming in 19 with the strong support of the Virginia delegation in a bipartisan manner, which is fantastic. And I want to thank all the hard work from DOE, from Congress, from the Hampton Roads community, and from the men and women who have really worked and put the tough and hard work and time and effort into these exciting experiences and discoveries. And you know, Ronald Reagan once said that each generation goes further than the last because it stands upon the shoulders of that generation. And no doubt those of you who have worked, continue to work, and will work will change the future in nuclear physics and science and national security for our community, for our country, and for our world. So thank you very much for your hard work and the legacy that you will leave. God bless you all.
Thanks very much, Congressman Taylor. Our next speaker has spent 30 years in local government, the last 9 of those here in Newport News. A year ago, she became the first woman to become city manager of Newport News. We welcome today, speaking on behalf of the City of Newport News, City Manager Cindy Rolfe.
Good afternoon. And on behalf of the City of Newport News, and I have Councilwoman Woodbury with me as well, we are very excited to be here to mark the completion of the 12GeV upgrade project. The City and Jefferson Lab have enjoyed a long-lasting and strong partnership since the very beginning more than 30 years ago. And it should be noted, and we're excited to say, that to demonstrate our ongoing commitment to Jefferson Lab and our partnership, we are facilitating the growth of an almost 1 million square foot research and development park right next door. And even more importantly, we have now secured the land so that Jefferson Lab can continue to grow. We know how fortunate we are to have a prestigious national lab located right within our own community. From the researchers the lab attracts to Newport News, to the scientific insights that are gained, to the students that benefit at our local universities, and to the technologies that are being developed by the very brilliant people that come to work here every day. Jefferson Lab is a tremendous asset for Newport News, for Virginia, and for our nation. The completion of this upgrade and the new era of science that it enables begins a new chapter in Jefferson Lab's story, a story of success and accomplishment. So today, the City of Newport News celebrates this accomplishment with you, and we look forward to the next chapter in our partnership. For some of us, the possibilities and opportunities are absolutely mind-boggling. Thank you.
Now I would like to introduce Michael Epps, the Federal Project Director for the 12GeV project, to present the Project Management Achievement Award, recognizing the hard work and accomplishments of the 12GeV project team in delivering this complex $338 million project on schedule and on budget. Michael.
Honored guest speakers, Department of Energy and Jefferson Lab family, good afternoon and welcome. It's truly a privilege for me to be here to share this amazing achievement with you all. Each year, the department honors its top-performing project teams, recognizing those who demonstrate project management excellence while significantly contributing to the mission, goals, and objectives of the department. The Secretary's Achievement Award is presented to project teams that have demonstrated significant results in completing projects within cost and schedule. Additionally, a project must be fully capable of meeting all mission performance goals, safeguarding security requirements, health, environmental safety, and health standards. To that end, if I could have Dr. Allison Lung please join me at the podium. On behalf of the Department of Energy, it is my pleasure to present the Secretary of Energy's Project Management Achievement Award to the 12GeV CEBAF Upgrade Project.
The 12GeV upgrade officially started in March of 2004. It was a partnership between the Department of Energy, Office of Science, Site Office, Office of Nuclear Physics, with SURA, JSA, Jefferson Lab, City of Newport News, Commonwealth of Virginia, and very importantly, our broad international scientific user community. It has required the talent and dedication of hundreds of individuals working for more than a decade to realize this exciting new science capability. On behalf of all of them, Jefferson Lab accepts this Achievement Award for Project Management, which will be proudly displayed in CEBAF Center. Thank you very much.
And again, let me share my congratulations to Allison, the entire 12GeV Upgrade Project team. It's really a tremendous achievement. I would also like to recognize two former lab directors sitting here in the second row who themselves devoted much of their time here at Jefferson Lab to making sure that the project was carried out, launched and carried out successfully and executed. So congratulations to all. Next, we will hear from two researchers from our user community whose members have been looking forward to realizing the science program enabled by this upgrade for more than a decade. The first is Chair-elect of the Jefferson Lab Users Group Board of Directors, Professor Julie Roche. Julie's relationship with Jefferson Lab started when she was a postdoctoral fellow in 1999. She's been a visiting researcher at Jefferson Lab and is now associate professor in the Department of Physics and Astronomy at Ohio University. Join me in welcoming Professor Julie Roche.
Hello. It is a real pleasure to talk today on behalf of the users of Jefferson Lab. Our group is made of 1,600 scientists. We hail from 275 institutions and from 36 countries worldwide. Since the beginning of CEBAF operation, together with the Jefferson Lab staff, we have authored 2,000 peer-reviewed articles. We are very proud of the many PhD students we have trained with the data we're taking here. Those students are now part of the technology workforce that our nation craves for. With the upgraded 12GeV machine, we are poised to dramatically extend our success, and we are looking forward to cross forward into new frontier territories and to create new knowledge. At its core, our common goal remains to uncover the detail on how free, almost massless quarks are making up heavy particles like neutrons and protons. And I'd like to invite you, Congressman, to come and join us to figure this out. The JLab users are bursting out of ideas on how to use these new facilities to further our studies. Despite a very competitive selection process, we already have 9 years of planned experiment approved. This is assuming 32 weeks of operation per year and for all operations. The JLab users are very excited by the doubling in energy and the matching improvement in detector and spectrometers. In order to achieve our goal, we have imagined experiments that challenge existing technologies. We know that time and time again, such new technologies developed for our scientific needs will find their way in our daily lives. The JLab users have proposed new experiments, we have built new detectors, and of course, we have been here present on day one, helping the JLab staff commission the new beam. We are delighted that this data-taking period, the one that is going to end up on Sunday, is being so successful. We are looking forward to continue working hand in hand with the JLab staff and to advance the frontier of our knowledge in our nuclear field. On behalf of the JLab user group, I wish all of us many beautiful scientific results. Thank you.
Our second representative from the user community is Nadia Foman, a young scientist who began her graduate career at Jefferson Lab and is now an assistant professor at the University of Tennessee. In addition to her role as a very active researcher, Nadia is engaged in the user community, serving on the Hall C user group and the southeastern section of the American Physical Society. Please welcome Professor Nadia Foman.
First of all, I wanted to say how grateful I am for the invitation to be here at the 12GeV dedication ceremony and to share in the celebration. So, I am an assistant professor at the University of Tennessee. I'm going up for tenure this fall, so this new date is going to be very timely. As was mentioned, I grew up as a scientist right here at Jefferson Lab. I did my thesis experiment in Hall C as a graduate student at the University of Virginia, and now I'm a spokesperson on experiments here with students of my own. And sometimes that still feels fairly surreal. So when I began my faculty appointment 5 years ago, I was the first and only JLab user in the whole state of Tennessee. So I set out to quickly change that by recruiting students. My first such recruit was Jason Bain, who had just passed his PhD qualifying exam. And it's Jason. To get Jason on board, I had to tell him 2 lies. The first was that this was 2013. The first was that he would be taking his 12GeV thesis data really soon. My hope here was that once Jason got here, learned about everything going on, and saw his would-be colleagues in action, he would be hooked. The second lie was that JLab was basically at the beach. Oh. But the lies worked. And we're up to 4 Jefferson Lab users in the state of Tennessee, not counting my husband. Even though the wait for their thesis data was a little longer than promised, we're very excited that we're finally up and running and Jason will graduate. But JLab science, the physics, it's not the only thing that we do here. Outreach and education are a vital part of our mission as well. I have seen many young people come through the lab. High school students, middle school students, even elementary school students. Maybe some of them will be inspired to grow up and be scientists. Others might be engineers, or maybe some of them will just go home and tell their parents about the cool things that they saw at their neighborhood world-class accelerator facility. We all know why Jefferson Lab Science is important to us, but we don't live and work in a bubble, and we would not be where we are today without the support of the community, the City of Newport News, the Commonwealth of Virginia, and of course the Department of Energy. To keep this support, we have to share our enthusiasm for what we're doing and why we're doing it with our friends and our neighbors and even our elected officials. Many of us already do this in the community every year on annual Nuclear Physics Day when we visit Capitol Hill to thank our representatives and senators for their support or to ask for their support depending on how things are going that year. So they who are with us here today now, they probably know from their science staffers as well as the tours from today why we are so excited about this upgrade. It allows us new physics reach. What does it mean? Why is doubling the energy of the electron so important? What can we do 11 GeV that we couldn't do at 6? So electrons are basically our microscopes into matter. They do not penetrate directly into protons or neutrons, the building blocks of all matter, but rather they kind of exchange a handshake in the form of a photon, a little bundle of energy. Well, not so little anymore. And the wavelength of that tiny bundle of energy determines what we can see, what we can resolve, and how well, with what kind of detail we can see these things. And that wavelength has a direct relationship with the electron energy that the accelerator can produce. So higher energy, better resolution, more details we can discern, and more mysteries, subatomic mysteries we can unlock. We learned quite a bit about nucleons, gluons, and quarks in the 6GeV era. But some of the more frustrating experimental results are those where we might be seeing something new and interesting, but we're just not sure. Where we got a clue, but not the whole answer. Where the result turned out different enough from what we were expecting that it actually told us where to look next. And now we can. And I'm not alone in being excited about this prospect. We now have the largest user group of any nuclear physics laboratory, and a lot of this new growth is due to this upgrade and what we'll be able to do because of it. So finally, a new era of JLab physics can begin as we've turned the lab up to 11.
Thank you so much, Professor Foman. Now to introduce our keynote speaker is Dr. Jerry Dreyer, President of the Southeastern Universities Research Association, majority partner in Jefferson Science Associates, the management and operating contractor for Jefferson Lab. Jerry also serves as the Chief Executive Officer of JSA. Dr. Dreyer has been involved with SURA since 1987 when he began serving the first of 4 terms as the institutional trustee from Louisiana State University. During his tenure on the SURA board, he chaired the New Projects Committee for 6 years and served as the board vice chair for a term before assuming the board chair in 1998. Dr. Dreyer is also the Roy P. Daniels Professor of Physics at Louisiana State University. Join me in welcoming Professor Jerry Dreyer.
As an old professor, I don't think Nadia is going to have a trouble with tenure. We are indeed fortunate to have with us today as our keynote speaker, the Honorable Paul Barr, Undersecretary of Science at the U.S. Department of Energy. Undersecretary Barr has a full plate, really full plate, as the department's principal investigator on fundamental energy research, energy technologies, and science, overseeing programs including nuclear and high-energy physics, basic energy, advanced computing, fusion, biological and environmental research, and providing direct management support for all of DOE's facilities. I don't know what the rest are doing up there, but Paul, we're sure glad you're with us here. Prior to his confirmation as Undersecretary for Science, Mr. Paul Barr worked in operations, finance, and strategy roles in the energy sector, believe it or not, as the managing director of J.P. Morgan. He led various energy business areas with over $400 billion in investment expertise across all sectors. And before joining J.P. Morgan, Mr. DeBar served as a nuclear submarine officer in California, in Hawaii, including deployment in the North Pole, where he conducted environmental research. He also served as the Department of Energy's Environmental Management Advisory Board. He has been a lecturer at the Navy Academy and conducted research at Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory. He received his bachelor's degree from the U.S. Naval Academy and his MBA from Columbia University. Please join me in welcoming Undersecretary Paul DeBar.
All right, well, thank you for that kind introduction, and Stuart, thank you for having me. I've been here 3 times in the last 6 months. I think they're going to try to give me an office at this point. And I have 16 other lab directors wondering how in the world he pulled it off. I continuously show up here, and I have to answer to those. I wore today my yellow and magenta Radcon tie. For all the nukes that are here, you all should feel nervous. Don't cross the line. Don't cross the line. Okay. I'd like to thank Congressman Scott and Congressman Taylor for their support for this lab, for the Office of Science and the Department of Energy. The last budget that was passed here a few weeks ago gave the Office of Science a 16% increase. It's an extremely $1.2 billion increase for the Office of Science. And it is going to make a very big impact. In particular, Stuart was asking for additional operating runtime for the facility here since it was just brought up. And thanks to the congressman for supporting that, and that's going to be able to happen. So thank you again for that. Thank you for the leaders from the Commonwealth. We appreciate the support of the governor and the Commonwealth and all the support here and all the other distinguished visitors, guests that are here today. I'm here to also on behalf of the Secretary Perry, who wishes to express the gratitude for everyone and the support here and interest in this facility. I was able to invite a number of people here who I've known from my past in the nuclear sector, who I appreciate from the commercial side. I love to try to bring those together. So I have friends of mine I've worked with before, Dominion here nearby, leaders in the commercial nuclear space. Friends of mine from Huntington Ingalls right down the road, which is the leading nuclear manufacturer for another area of the Department of Energy for the Navy nuclear submarine program and aircraft carrier. So thank you for being here and being partners for the department. And I have friends of mine here from the Navy, Rear Admiral Hurley and Captain Pennington, both Navy nukes, both former roommates of mine, and having gone to the North Pole or been on aircraft carriers with them, and having been former roommates, I'll use a good military term, they probably have stories about me that would rely on, that we don't talk to each other about in public sessions because it's mutual assured destruction. I know about them, they know about me, and we keep quiet. Here at Jefferson Lab, we're dedicating the CEBAF upgrade for the study of the basic building blocks of the universe and of matter and the forces that keep it together, and ultimately bind all of us together. Like the forces that we study here today at Jefferson Lab, there are strong forces here in this room that bind us together. The department, the Congress and the Hill, the state, the community who supports in nuclear physics and all across the lab complex, as well as the local community here in Newport News. We appreciate all the strong forces that are brought together here for the dedication for the 12GeV upgrade. We will see a new era in nuclear physics, allowing researchers to see objects 1 million times smaller than the atom. It will keep Jefferson Lab on the frontier in the research for nuclear physics, as it always has been. And we very much appreciate the support here and the leadership of everyone here at the lab on laying out that science and bringing forward the area of knowledge. Thanks to this upgrade, CEBAF continues in its mission as the world's most powerful microscope for the study of the nucleus of an atom with even greater experimental reach into the heart of matter. It has tripled the operating energy of the original electron beams thanks to the upgrade, thanks to 10 new high-performance accelerator units and the cryo modules, as well as the associated system upgrades. These are supported by 3 new spectrometer systems, requiring 7 superconducting magnets, as well as 32 new detector systems built with over 87,000 sensors. This is an amazing amount of engineering, an amazing amount of work, and it's going to be able to process 34 trillion bytes of data a day. So what you were seeing here today, that's how much data is being generated and being used by the user community to provide data for the research in the areas of quarks and gluons. Through this facility, the scientists will peer deeper into the heart of matter, strengthening our understanding of the universe, and be able to understand it at scales we've never seen before. I think if some of you have heard that this particular facility supports 1,600 researchers around the country. You can see in the list here behind us of the various universities that have been supporting this and running this facility. And there's many more who represented it at other universities in the user group community. We very much, as a core mission of the Department of Energy, providing large user facilities such as here to the user facility, to users all around the country and all around the world to help move forward the area of knowledge. As was said here a couple of times, this is something I'm certain that appropriators appreciate, and I certainly appreciate as an administrator, that this project, this $338 million upgrade, was done on time and on budget. We appreciate that very much. There's many people here in the room who've dealt with large nuclear facilities and dealt with user facilities, and can appreciate that that's a challenge. That doesn't happen all the time. And it happens because of proper project management, of proper design, of proper engineering, proper science. As a result, the CEBAF upgrade, this particular upgrade received the department, the DOE Project Management Award for the year. And so we very much appreciate the performance on the execution that you did here on behalf of the taxpayers, on behalf of appropriations, and on behalf of the department. So thank you very much for that performance. On another aspect, we were talking about the amount of data that this is being created. This is a very important part of what we do at the department. And one thing that we announced about 3 weeks ago was also a $1.8 billion RFP for building our second and third exascale computers. So that's 10 to the 18th calculations per second, which we're going to be able to use here to support the data that's going to be created by the upgrade, and we very much look forward to taking that and melding it together with the data that's being created here with the upgrade and moving that forward. There's a couple of things that many of you may not know in terms of what the department, and obviously the department, the core of the department came from the Manhattan Project. Originally, a number of core labs, Oak Ridge, the Hanford site, Los Alamos, were created, and many others during World War II around the moving forward of nuclear physics on behalf of the war effort. On the back of that, at the end of World War II, the Atomic Energy Commission was stood up to run that, and many other labs that stood up, including here, Jefferson Lab. And the heart and core of the department is the 17 national labs. It's not Washington, D.C. It's not, I apologize for those of us from D.C. It's not in the Forrestal building, it's not in the Hill, right? It's in the 17 national labs. And the amount of science which is done, whether it's in the weapons area, whether it's in the science area, whether it's in the applied areas. This is where the heart and the core of the department is. This is where the vast majority of the dollars go to in order to support our various functions. And we very appreciate the focus and the effort that the heart and core of the department does, including everyone here in this room, and we're glad to support that. You may have kind of some vague knowledge of this about, as you might guess, but you may not know this data, that 40% of all the Nobel Prizes in physics in the world were given to people who conducted research at our national labs. 40%. And the U.S. only makes up 5% of the population, so of the world. 25% of all the Nobel Prizes in chemistry were done by people who work at our national labs. This shows the breadth of the sort of knowledge which the National Lab Complex does. I was just had the pleasure to be invited to the Hill for the Nobel Prize winners for this year for a reception on the edge of the Senate floor. And it was very exciting that the winners in physics came from the United States this year from the gravitational wave. For those of you who follow that, that was a group of people out of Caltech who basically proved Einstein's theory of gravitational waves accurate. It took a very long time to get there. And they had two major user facilities, and one of them is on a DOE site. And it was very exciting to see that science and seeing people who worked for decades on proving a theory correct and ultimately identifying and moving forward the bounds of physics, identifying black holes colliding together and neutron stars colliding together and actually detecting them for the first time. So I think it's about time that someone from Jefferson Lab win the Nobel Prize. So let's try to make that happen. So. Now, I know you can't promise that, but we can enable top-grade research in the area of nuclear physics. We can aspire, and we can dream. And I know that's what you do every day, and we appreciate it very much in terms of your innovation and where you're leaning towards and moving forward to bounds of knowledge. I'll give another quote from President Reagan, maybe just kind of piling on to the member here. The remarkable thing is that although basic research does not begin with a particular practical goal, when you look at the result over years, it ends up being one of the most practical things that government does. There's a lot of people who ask about, so why do we invest money in this particular area? Why do we invest money in that particular area? And it is truly that we don't know where it goes. The Manhattan Project and areas that led up to that certainly was a part of that. I have the letter up on my wall in my office, the letter from Albert Einstein that was given to FDR about the importance of nuclear physics and the importance of it to the national defense of the country and the impact of that on where things were going to go vis-a-vis World War II. I like having that up in my office as a memory of science, driving forward public policy, giving recommendations, and ultimately delivering on something that's very important. Another example that I like to give in the area of nuclear physics is Ernst Rutherford, who won the Nobel Prize. He got a Nobel Prize, of all things in chemistry, which is quite entertaining, in the area of atomic disintegration. And at the time, people thought, this goes to Madame Curie and so on, that atoms could not be broken apart. And he proved that atoms could be broken apart. And he got a Nobel Prize and went on to actually even more important things than what he got his Nobel Prize in, which is amazing. But that Nobel Prize that he got in chemistry in, quote, atomic disintegration was really fission. And in 1908, no one knew where that piece of chemistry was going to go to. Where did it go to? The whole nuclear industry and everything, all the derivatives and everything that we're talking about here today came from that little piece of knowledge that no one knew where it was going to go. Nuclear power came from that area. Nuclear medicine, nuclear imaging, many derivatives, nuclear medicine, many different areas of different topics. were spun out of that one piece of research. And we expect that the sort of research done here today, don't know where exactly it's going to go, but we know it's going to go someplace important. So thank you for everything that everyone here in this room and everyone here is using the facility will support that. I want to thank everyone here who's been able to execute on this. I know we're putting energy back on the frontier of science, continuing to lead the way for the world. Thank you again for everyone who supports that, and thank you everyone here at the lab and in the community for participating today and hearing a little bit about what they do here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Undersecretary. So this concludes the first portion of the program. While some of us will be leaving to participate in a press event, I would at this time like to ask Hugh Montgomery, my predecessor as lab director and someone who had an extremely important role in realizing this project, to act as MC for the remainder of the program. I invite you all to remain and enjoy the presentations that are about to follow that will focus on details of the project and the new capabilities in each hall. Thank you again. Come on.
Surgery on new knee on June.
Here we are again. Okay, the program that you don't see actually gives me 2 minutes. But there are a couple of things I wanted to say, and I think it's been important that this afternoon there has been very little by way of personality praise. When I joined the lab, there were 30 FTEs working on the upgrade project. At the peak, there were 200. And when you take into account the fact that not everybody was working 100% of the time on the upgrade, that says that probably well in excess of half of the people at the lab at any given time in that period were working on the upgrade. So this is indeed a celebration for the whole lab. The segment of the proceedings now is dominated by physics. There are a couple of people that aren't appearing here. Howard, for example, was the Hall C CAM for quite a while. Glenn Young was Associate Project Manager. Will Brooks, Rolf Ent, Elke Ashna, all played roles. But one thing that I find maybe the cutest thing about the results of the last many years is the 4-hole operation, which is in fact off project. And it came as a result of a question asked in a users meeting here, in which it was said, is it really impossible to run all 4 halls together? And over the course of the next year, Reza Kazemi worked on it and came back the following year, and indeed there was a presentation explaining how it might be done and what limitations there would be. At the moment, that little move off project is multiplying the output of physics from this lab by a factor of 4 over 3. I find it quite nice. I'm quite pleased that Reza is present, and maybe it's worth a round of applause for him. Okay, so what I'm really supposed to do is introduce Cynthia Keppel, who's going to talk about what's going on in Hall A and Hall C. Cynthia?
And I'm supposed to have slides because you don't want to hear me just talk. So, I'll talk if you don't watch it. All right, so it is my absolute joy to be able to talk to you for a very short time, similarly scripted, about the impact of the 12GeV project on Halls A and C. And I'm doing this largely for Howard Finker, who, as Mont said, was the Hall C cam, and I grabbed a picture of him, and my pointer's not working, but you can all see Howard there because he's not the woman. There you go, thank you. All right. So in Hall C, what was our mission? We wanted to extend the energy reach to actually be able to use the 11GeV electrons that were going to come into the hall, which meant that we needed a spectrometer capable of doing that. And so being very original, we had the existing high momentum spectrometer, or HMS, and we then set about to create the super HMS. And so here's what it looked like back in the original conception-ish time period, where we had the original HMS, and we used to have another thing in the hall called the short orbit spectrometer, which we took out to make way for the SHMS. And here's a picture then just of the SHMS with all the different little pieces, parts, which were supported by the 12GeV project. So we needed to, of course, build the support, and then there's these 5 magnets, a horizontal bend, a quad, and a dipole, detector stack, and then all of the necessary instrumentation to support all of that. So that's what was created. Here's just an overview of the magnets, and I show you this mostly to point out that there were different vendors for these. We had Michigan State and Sigma Phi and Scientific Magnetics, and so this was a large part of the project in Hall C, and so I have beautiful pictures of all of them appearing. So the HB and the dates and so on, the quads coming in, and then finally this last lift of the dipole, and then the cryocoolers attached to it, and all of that. Then we needed magnets to bend the electrons up into particle detectors. And this was a really nice story because the detector stack in Hall C largely was made by the users and funded by the users. And so you see here the various universities, but also look at this, some 12GeV project funding, but also National Science Foundation and other countries to bring this detector stack into the super high momentum spectrometer. So very nice collaborative effort there. And here's a picture of it actually installed. So this is the same picture I showed you a moment ago, and here's what it actually looks like here with the various pieces and parts. And then there's this other picture where you can kind of look down from the top at it through the shielding hut, but it is not bent. We just needed to do that to get it into the photo. But you can see all these different things. So the shrink-off counters and shower counters for particle identification and tracking, and all of this coming in, and this is looking at it this way where the electrons come from the magnets up into this detector stack here in this shielding hut. So next I'm going to talk about shielding hut and support structure. So you can see here the support structure at some point in its construction phase. And this is kind of a nice story because, of course, the detectors need to be shielded from the background radiation in the hall. And to do that, we needed something kind of we wanted to have a lot of room in our detector hut, so we didn't want real thick walls, and plus it needed to be light enough to roll around with the spectrometer. And so in fact, Paul Brinza, who not only worked on a lot of design of those magnets, but he came up with a patentable shielding technique, which now has some commercial interest, so a spin-off from the 12GeV project. And here's what it looks like all put together with bunches of the other things that we had to do, the cryo services, the beam pipe, all of these sorts of things, but it is built. Speaking of the beam pipe, we also had to upgrade the polarimetry for the hall, changing our Compton and Moeller polarimeters to accommodate the 11GeV beam optics to bring the beam through them and into the hall. So all of this was part of the upgrade, so lots of activities, and I need to watch my time, so I can't go on and on, but there was really, really a lot going on in the hall to accomplish this. But here's what I really want to say is it's done and it's working, and we've been running physics. So here is the hall in the 12GeV era. The super high momentum is fully commissioned. This is one of the shift crews on shift taking data, and this is actually Nadia Foman's thesis student's data right here. Not the one she talked about, another student. So we have a lot of students here on site right now, which is really fun. We have actually taken data for our 4 first commissioning experiments as planned, completely done, and we're on to the next set. And in the first 1.5 years of operation, we expect to obtain data for between 7 and 9 experiments. So Hall C is a great success, I think, and we're thrilled with the impact of the 12GeV project on the hall. I will also talk about Hall A very quickly. Hall A did not have an upgrade to the equipment that was part of the 12GeV project other than the beam line. So it looks kind of old in there, and that's because it is. But it's still running. So there's pluses and minuses to being old, which we all know, right? So one of them is that, okay, we upgraded our beam line because we were there. We got to take data first in Hall A, and so we've in fact completed 5 experiments. And so this plot is actually from a publication that's already out there submitted from one of the first experiments. And we're running right now to 2 of these experiments that were completed use the novel tritium target, which is actually the first being used in nuclear physics for over 3 decades, and it's been successfully running in Hall A. So in general, we're up and going, and we're quite happy to be so. And there are many, 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 many people to thank. So this is kind of the end of my talk, so I put it at the end of the spectrometers here at the backside, with thank yous not only to all the people who left, who've been thanked a lot today, but in particular to all of you guys who really helped with getting the hall going. And I just can't possibly attempt to name anyone, but you all know who you are, and we all are really happy and appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Thea. That Hall A program was just on time because I told Roy Holt that we would only run tritium after I was lab director. So the next speaker is Eugene Chudikov from Hall D.
Good afternoon. I was the was the control account manager for this project from 2009 to its completion. And the project is dedicated to physics with a photon beam. Here is a layout. So the electron beam is extracted into an underground Tagger Hall where it is it's radiating photons which somewhat polarized at about 9 GeV energy range, and they are delivered to Hall D where they interact with the target, which is surrounded by a large acceptance spectrometer. It is the main motivation for this experiment, for this project was experiment GLUX, was first proposed in 1997, discussed in 98, and submitted to Program Advisory Committee in 99. And you know the project officially started in 2004. 2008, the construction was approved, and from that to 2014, everything was built, and the Hall D had the first beam commissioning at the end of 2014. So then the next year, the project was officially finished for Hall D, and since then, the experiment GLUX is running. So the team consisted of several institutions, Jefferson Lab, and a number of universities, which subcontracted various projects, sub-projects, building detectors. And it consisted of scientists, students, and engineers, designers, technicians, project administrators, procurement officials, and many other people, and who for several years pushed this project up the slopes of progress charts, trying to stay on schedule and on budget. It was a long climb, but it started in this pit, which is the site of Hull D. But it was 2009, but in a year the hull was already ready for installation, and we started installation with this huge superconducting magnet, which was then 1.5 years after was connected and was powered up. So the largest part of the project is always the detectors, and so this is the largest detector in our experiment. So it is a calorimeter, barrel calorimeter, which is used to detect high-energy photons. It's built of lead and scintillating fibers. 48 modules were built in Regina, and other institutions were involved. There is a side of one module. You can see through the fibers, and then the light guides were glued, and the photosensors were made. And then all 48 modules were arranged in a barrel and then pushed inside the magnets and connected. And you see the time scale, it was start 2010, and 2013 it was installed. So the drift chambers are used to detect trajectories of charged particles. The central drift chambers built at Carnegie Mellon, delivered to Jefferson Lab and installed the next month in 2014. And this forward drift chambers downstream of the central drift chamber will build here at Jefferson Lab. And so you can see the first package of 6 planes were tested with Cosmics, and then were all installed in a cart and pushed inside the magnet. So outside of the magnet, downstream of the magnet, there are several other detectors. There is a time-of-flight scintillating bars detector, which was built at Florida State. And then downstream of that, there is another calorimeter for photons. It's built of nearly 3,000 lead glass blocks by Indiana University. You see that this frame is half stacked and then fully stacked. So the target was delivered in 2014, built here for liquid hydrogen, and there is a small count around the target built at Florida International. So this is a Tagger hull, so with the long magnet and the detectors built by these institutions serve to measure the energy of the deflected electrons. A very big part of this project was electronics, which was the responsibility of the lab to develop and to manufacture it. There are 50 crates, more than 50 crates of this type. It was a lot of efforts. And also a lot of efforts was just the infrastructure of these two new halls, and the photographs of the technical teams in 2012 and 2014 who worked on that big part of the project. So what are the status, the early results and outlook? The first publication was based on the data from 2016, which was an engineering run. It used this perfect conditions of this polarized photon beam, and so just the merit of the beam provided this publication. And this is, meanwhile, so since then, so GLUX is taking data in 2017 and 18, which is, has taken up to now about 75% of the data foreseen. So this is a chart of this year, how these are days, and this is the number of events taken. And the data analysis is in progress, and so here is an illustration of ability of the experiments to identify complex events with the 6 photons in the final state. This is a mass of 6 photons showing the signals from known particles, the eta prime, and so low-level resonances. It's about 1/5 of the statistics foreseen. So GLUX is supposed to, first stage of GLUX is supposed to finish this calendar year, and after that, other set of experiments will be scheduled and the physics program will be extended beyond that. So thank you for your attention. And I use the opportunity to thank all the people who contribute to this very challenging project and help to bring it to success.
Thanks, Eugene. So the final speaker of the proceedings is Latifa El-Adriri, who will talk about the Hall B enterprise.
Okay, so thank you. It's an honor and pleasure actually to be here and to talk about the upgrades in Hall B. This is a major component of the 12GeV upgrades and new start of an era of science. Hall B houses what we call the CEBAF Large Acceptance Detector, Class 12. This is an upgrade to the existing class detector, and 12 to operate at the 12GeV. It is designed to perform imaging of the most fundamental blocks of matter, the protons and neutrons, understand the strong force that bind all the subatomic particles together, and understand the pressure inside the proton, determine some of the mechanical properties of the protons, such as the radius, such as the mass distribution, but also doing spatial imaging of the nuclei. So in order to do that, the theoretical framework has been developed in the last decade to enable us from this measurement to go to the physics. And in order to do precise experiments, we need to measure exclusive reactions at high energies. And for that, we want to count for all the particles that are produced in the final state by measuring them directly or counting for them. Counting for them means that we have enough resolution to determine the missing particles. And this is the class 12 detectors. It has what I call two hearts, the central detector and forward detector. So, and I will walk you through some of the highlights of all of the class 12 detector. But I want to point out, these are more than 111,000 channels that they have all to work together. So the first heart is the superconducting solenoid. It was one of the last superconducting magnets to arrive at Jefferson Lab, and this is during the final stages at the company, but it was the fastest magnets that arrived at the JLab from the time of arrival to reaching full current. It arrived end of June, and it was really achieved full current end of September. This is spectacular, and that speaks for all the team efforts from all around the laboratory. Then inside the central detectors, we want to see all the particles that are going at low momentum. So they are detected, this is the time-of-flight system, assembled in the hall. This is during the fabrication in the laboratory, and this is to measure the arrival of time of the charged particles. But we need also to measure the positions of the particles. This is where it comes, the silicon detector. Silicon detector is new technology for Jefferson Lab, but we are proud now to be one of the leading in this area. So it's a unique detector. And our challenge for nuclear physics compared to high energy physics that they use this technology for many experiments is that we want to minimize the matter in the area of production. So all the electronic has to be backward. So the modules have been fabricated at Fermilab, and this is the full detector assembled and operating beautifully. So then this shows now the central detector completed. The silicon detector is inside. You cannot see it. It's surrounded by another detector. This is micro-omegas that are provided by our European collaborators to have higher precision measurements of the position, the time-of-flight system, and neutron detector. That's complete, and inside the solenoid. So next is between the solenoid and the forward detectors. We want to identify our electrons. This is done with the high threshold Cherenkov. This is now put before our tracking system, and that was another challenge. We needed to build detector that has minimal material as possible to minimize energy loss of particle when they cross the detector. And this is 8 feet mirror, self-supported, and worked also, it's unique detector, so worked beautifully. And you can see the happy team. This is now during the mirror fabrication, this is the high temperature Cherenkov completely assembled and ready to go in the hall. So another heart of the class 12 is the forward detector, and it's based on what the superconducting toroidal magnet. And this is, again, another unique detector because we pushed the engineers and the technology to the limits. We wanted to have as large acceptance as possible, so we had to push and have coil as thin as possible. And again, this was built, the coil winding was done at Fermilab. All the design was done here and the assembly at Jefferson Lab. So it's spectacular. It's also a superconducting magnet that worked from the first time and achieved high current immediately. So now between, in the forward direction, we have also to measure the position of the different particle. This is achieved by tracking system. There are 3 regions of drift chambers. The smallest one was done at Idaho State University, and the middle one that sits between the coil to measure the curvature of the particles was done at Old Dominion University. And the biggest one was done, the largest one, which we call Region 3, is done at Jefferson Lab. And we were able to string 2 big chambers simultaneously here to meet our timeline. So that's, these are 18 chambers, so that was all worked beautifully. Then after that, we need also to measure the timing of the high energy particles that are going to forward. This is done by the forward time of flight. You can see here the assembly of the time of flight was done at fabrication at University of South Carolina and tested there, came to Jefferson Lab and assembled and installed in final position in the hall. Then after that, we have to identify also neutral particle. This is done by the calorimeter, and because we're going to high energy, we want to have the capability to separate pi zeros from neutrons, so we added what we call the pre-shower calorimeter. So the only thing that was stayed from class is the electromagnetic calorimeter sitting here, so you can see it. And you can see the installation of the pre-shower calorimeter, the installation of the 4th sector. And this is when we were doing the fabrication in the EEL building. So in addition, all what I showed is the baseline equipment that are part of the Class 12 project. In addition to that, there was a major contribution from our European collaborator to enhance the capability of Class 12. One of them is the micromega that I talked about earlier that was surrounding the silicon detector to provide us with much higher precision of the polar angle of the scattered particle. And that was completed, assembled in the EEL building, ready to go in the hall. And this is our French team from CA-Saclay. And then another component is the neutron detector that was also surrounding our time of flight in the central detector to be able to detect neutron particles. That was done by our collaborator from Orsay. All the components were built in Orsay, came here, and assembled here. And another component that was done by our collaborators from Italy is the fabrication of the rich detector in one sector that enhanced the particle identification in the forward direction, separating kaons from pions and protons. Another important component is what we call the forward tagger. This is a detector that detects charged particles and neutron particles that are going at a very small angle. It enables us to do 2 things: detect photons that we want to do for like imaging that are coming at a very small angle. But in addition, it enables us to detect scattered electrons that are going at a very small angle to enable us to do physics that is complementary to what is being done in Hall D. Because we are detecting electrons at a very small angle, we are doing quasi-photoproduction there. So, and this is equipped with calorimeter, tracking system, and scintillator for timing. So this is how Class 12 detector completes in the hall. And for you who have been in the tour, you saw that today. So, and the first experiment has started. So this is what we saw when we saw the first beam in Hall B. That was February 2017. That we took short time to demonstrate the key performance parameter of the Class 12. What you cannot see in this picture, you cannot hear, is the scream. It was spectacular. So we got the beam on Friday at 5 p.m. And if you look at the clock, that was 10 past 11. We have the first beam that you can see here in the right place. You can imagine this 11,000 channels all put together and operating simultaneously immediately. And then in addition to that, we had all the slides that we want to send to the DOE produced. So we had to tweak them over the weekend, send them to the lab director, that he sent them to DOE on Monday. I mean, that was just a fabulous moment. The other thing is now, of course, after that we did the commissioning of the Class 12 detector. Now we are in full production with electron beam on hydrogen targets to really develop a series of experiments. There are 13 experiments that are run simultaneously. One of the things that we do is we optimize our trigger in order to take as many data as possible for experiments that are in common, that we really optimize our running time. So these are now the kinematical coverage that we were advertising as simulation. Now this is real data. This is the momentum transfers as a function of the invariant mass. These are tracks in our central detector, in the silicon detector and the micromega. This is our particle identification in the forward detector. So, of course, as Mont said, this cannot happen without a lot of efforts from Jefferson Lab across all divisions and across all the departments. Everybody involved. In addition, the international class collaboration from all around the world, 46 institutions, postdocs, students, faculty, staff, everybody involved, from Europe and across the country, from the US and from Chile, South America, and everywhere in the world, actually, and we're pushing to get even more people involved in the science that is to come. And I want to also thank the reviewers. We started these projects, as Alison said, since 2004, 2003, and until 2017, and we had reviewers that followed us along the way. And I'm showing the people from the physics subcommittee. So these are looking through the window, looking at the drift chambers stringing, and here it's in the Silicon Lab. Here, this was actually director review. In addition to the DOE reviews, we had director's reviews. And this was one of the director review that we were showing simulation how class 12 will look like in the hall. And now we can show it in real. And of course, the Department of Energy across all the offices. So that's really fantastic. This is a review, I think this was one of the 2015 review. And the same review committee for physics followed us from the beginning to now. And their advice were critical to the success of this project. And at the end, I would like to thank everyone, and I hope I got you on time for the reception. Thank you.
Thank you all. Let there be physics.